A private jet costs $40 million to buy and $4 million a year to maintain. Most people who own one do not need to fly privately. They need to be seen flying privately, but only by the right people in the right context for the right reasons. The jet is not transportation. The yacht is not a boat. The mansion is not a house. Every element of the ultra-rich lifestyle is a working instrument in a system most people never see. And the system has nothing to do with comfort. Please subscribe and activate the button to help us reach 1,000 subscribers so we can bring you more relevant content and so YouTube can notify you when we publish new videos. The most misunderstood thing about extreme wealth is what it costs to maintain. Not the financial cost, though that is staggering in its own right. The other cost, the less visible, never discussed, structurally essential cost that operates beneath every private jet flight, every superyacht mooring, every membership renewal, and every invitation accepted or declined at the altitude where these decisions carry real consequences. The cost that is not measured in dollars but in something considerably harder to accumulate and considerably more difficult to replace. The cost of being, continuously and without interruption, exactly the right version of yourself. The ultra-rich do not live lavishly because they enjoy excess. Some of them do, genuinely, and there is nothing dishonest about saying so. But the people whose wealth is genuinely dynastic, whose position has been maintained across generations, whose names carry weight in rooms where weight matters, those people do not experience their lifestyle as indulgence. They experience it as infrastructure, as the physical, social, and reputational architecture through which their actual power is expressed, maintained, and continuously renewed. Every element of the life is load-bearing. Remove the right address and the signal changes. Downgrade the aviation and the implicit message to everyone who notices, and at this level, everyone who matters notices, is that something has shifted. Decline the membership renewal, and you lose not merely the club but the specific category of relationship that the club makes possible, the specific quality of encounter that only happens when the right people are in the same room without cameras, without formal agendas, and without the constraints that public visibility places on what can be said and decided. This is the hidden system. Not the wealth itself, but the infrastructure of the wealth, the specific, calibrated, deliberately maintained architecture of signals, affiliations, and physical presences that together constitute a single unified communication to the world about who this person is and what category they occupy. The communication never stops. That is the first thing to understand. The ultra-rich are always transmitting, always managing the signal, always aware, at a level of ambient professional vigilance that most people never develop because most people are never in a position where the cost of a misread signal is real, of what every choice communicates in every context where it will be observed. The car that picks you up from the airport. The hotel where you stay when the private residence is not available. The table at the restaurant. Not whether you have a reservation, but which table, confirmed by whom, communicated to the maître d' through which channel, in language that signals familiarity rather than request. Each of these is a micro-decision that aggregates across thousands of similar decisions over years into a coherent picture of exactly the right kind of person. The cost of maintaining that picture is not primarily financial. It is attentional. It requires a quality of sustained, detail-oriented, never fully relaxed awareness that is genuinely exhausting. And that is also, for the people who grew up inside the system, so thoroughly normalized that they would not describe it as exhausting. They would describe it, if they described it at all, as simply how things are done. That normalization is itself a product of the system. Children raised inside serious wealth do not learn explicitly that every element of the life is strategic. They absorb it. Through observation, through correction, through the ambient culture of an upbringing specifically designed to produce people who carry the infrastructure naturally, who never seem to be performing it, who transmit the signal with the specific effortlessness that is the signal's most important component. Effortlessness is the most expensive thing money can buy, not because it requires the most financial resources, though it often does, because producing genuine effortlessness, not the performed effortlessness of someone who has recently acquired wealth and has not yet learned to wear it without showing the effort, requires years of formation, of exposure, of living inside the correct environments for long enough that their standards become your standards, their rhythms become your rhythms, their specific quality of taking certain things for granted becomes your quality. You cannot purchase that formation directly. You can purchase proximity to the environments that produce it, and proximity, over sufficient time, with sufficient attention, begins to do the work. But here is what nobody tells you about the cost of that work. The formation that makes the signal effortless also makes the signal inescapable. Once you have been formed to transmit it, you transmit it always, in every room, to every person, regardless of whether the transmission is commercially useful in that specific moment. The system runs on you, not the other way around. And running the system, without knowing you are running it, is the most expensive thing the ultra-rich ever pay for. Let's talk about the private jet, because it is the element of the ultra-rich lifestyle that generates the most commentary and the least accurate analysis. The commentary focuses on the financial cost, the environmental impact, and the performative dimension, the specific, somewhat undeniable vanity of choosing a $40 million aircraft for a journey that a commercial first-class ticket would accomplish with minimal additional discomfort. This commentary is not wrong in its observations. It is wrong in its understanding of what the jet is for. The private jet is a time machine, not metaphorically, operationally. The billionaire who flies privately does not simply avoid the inconvenience of commercial aviation, the security lines, the boarding procedures, the unpredictability of delays. They access a fundamentally different relationship to their own time. A relationship in which the hours of travel are not consumed by the logistics of travel, but remain available for the work, the thinking, the conversations, and the decisions that produce the outcomes justifying the aircraft's existence. A 4-hour flight for someone managing $20 billion in assets is not 4 hours. It is 4 hours of uninterrupted access to the people traveling with them, to the documents that require undivided attention, to the specific quality of cognitive availability that is almost impossible to sustain in any environment with the interruptions and social obligations of public spaces. At a sufficiently high level of commercial activity, the return on that availability justifies the cost of the aircraft multiple times over in any year, where a single significant decision benefits from the clarity that the environment provides. The jet is not a luxury. It is a productivity instrument with an entry price that ensures most of its competitors cannot access the same instrument. That is the first level, and it is the level most people stop at because it is the level that is most legible in purely financial terms. The second level is considerably more interesting. Private aviation creates a social environment that does not exist anywhere else. The confined, intimate, extended space of a long-haul private flight, with 3 or 4 or 6 people, no staff beyond the crew, no external interruption, no option to escape into the social performance that public settings require, produces a quality of conversation that no boardroom and no dinner table can replicate. People say things on a private jet that they would not say anywhere else, because the context is simultaneously intimate and suspended between departure and arrival, between the obligations of the world left behind and the obligations of the world approaching. In that suspension, something relaxes. The ultra-rich know this. They use it. The invitations extended to join a private flight are among the most significant social and professional communications in their world. More significant than a dinner invitation, more significant than a meeting request. Because the flight creates extended, unstructured, physically intimate time together, the specific conditions under which relationships deepen, under which trust forms, under which the kind of information is exchanged that changes the trajectory of decisions and careers and investments. The person invited onto the jet is not receiving transportation. They are receiving a signal about their position in the hierarchy. A signal that says, "You are someone whose company I want for an extended period, without an audience, without an agenda, without the structures that govern every other professional interaction. You are inside." That signal is worth more than the flight. And the person who sends it understands exactly what they are communicating, to exactly the person they are communicating with, at exactly the right moment in the development of a relationship that they have been managing toward this specific threshold for months, possibly years. Now watch how the same logic applies to the yacht. Because this is where the strategic function of the ultra-rich lifestyle becomes most visible to anyone who is looking honestly. The superyacht is not a boat. It is a sovereign space, a physical environment, entirely controlled, entirely private, entirely removed from the legal and social jurisdictions that govern behavior everywhere else, that can be positioned anywhere in the world in response to conditions that the owner decides are relevant. The yacht provides something that no property investment can replicate: the combination of sovereign control and geographic flexibility. The ability to be anywhere, without a fixed address that generates a record, in an environment where the owner's word is the only rule. The people who have consequential conversations on yachts are not doing so because they enjoy the ocean. They are doing so because the yacht is the context that makes certain conversations possible that no other context permits. No recording, no staff with conflicting loyalties, no legal jurisdiction that a subpoena easily reaches. The yacht is not a symbol of wealth. It is the physical infrastructure of unwitnessed power. The private members club is the most misunderstood institution in the landscape of elite life. From the outside, it appears to be a social amenity, a comfortable place to eat and drink and meet people in an environment that is exclusive by virtue of being expensive and selective by virtue of maintaining a membership process. A nice place, in other words, for people who can afford nice places and who prefer the company of other people who can afford nice places. This reading is accurate the way a weather report is accurate when it describes a hurricane as rain. Technically correct, completely inadequate. The private members club at the level we are discussing is an information exchange, a physical environment maintained at significant cost, whose primary function is the creation of conditions under which the right information flows between the right people in the right way. Not the formal, documented, legally accountable information flows of professional settings. The other kind, the kind that moves in conversation, in implication, in the specific texture of how someone answers a question about a market or a deal or a political development that they have reasons not to answer directly. The value of that information, the edge it provides to the people who are present when it moves, is, for the members who understand what the club actually is, the entire justification for the membership fee. The fee is not the cost of a comfortable room. It is the cost of access to an intelligence environment that cannot be replicated by any research firm, any news service, or any formal network at any price. And here is the mechanism that makes the intelligence environment function. Trust. Not institutional trust, the kind enforced by contracts and legal accountability. Personal trust, the specific, accumulated, experience-based confidence that the people in this room are the kind of people who understand the implicit rules of what can be said here and what cannot leave here, who know without being told that the value of the environment depends entirely on the reliability of its discretion, who have enough invested in their continued membership and in the relationships it enables to treat the maintenance of that discretion as a non-negotiable professional obligation. The club selects for that understanding through its membership process, not explicitly. The process does not ask candidates whether they can be trusted with sensitive information. It asks questions, solicits references, and conducts informal assessments that are designed to determine, through indirect means, exactly that: whether the candidate has the specific combination of social formation, professional standing, and relationship to consequence that produces the behavior the environment requires. Most candidates who fail do not know what they failed on. They simply receive a polite letter explaining that the membership committee has decided not to proceed. The information about why never arrives. And the absence of that information is itself a communication, a signal, clear to anyone who understands the culture, that the candidate revealed something in the assessment process that the environment cannot absorb. Now watch how the luxury residence extends the same logic from the club into the domestic space. The ultra-rich do not buy houses primarily for shelter, or even primarily for comfort, though both are present in abundance. They buy specific addresses for the same reason they buy specific club memberships, because the address is a signal, and the signal communicates to everyone who receives it a precise set of information about the person sending it. The information is not primarily about financial capacity. Anyone who reaches the level of acquisition we are discussing has financial capacity that is legible through many channels. The information is about taste, about the specific, discriminating, culturally informed relationship to quality and place that distinguishes someone who bought the right address from someone who bought the most expensive address. In the world of serious wealth, those are emphatically not the same thing. The person who bought the most expensive address has money. The person who bought the right address, the one that signals not financial maximalism but genuine cultural formation, the understanding of what is actually valued by the people whose valuation matters, that person has something the first person may never acquire, regardless of how much the gap between them in net worth narrows. They have legibility in the right register, and legibility in the right register is the key that opens the doors that money alone cannot open, the dinners where the conversation is real, the introductions that change the trajectory of a career or an investment, the access to information that moves through relationship rather than through any public channel. The residence is the credential. The credential is the access. And the access is what the ultra-rich are actually buying every time they write a check for something the rest of the world calls a luxury. Everything we have examined so far, the jet, the yacht, the club, the address, is the visible layer. The part of the system that faces outward, that is observable by anyone paying close enough attention. But there is an inner layer, a set of costs that the ultra-rich pay that are never discussed publicly, and that explains something about this world that the financial analysis never captures. What comes next changes the entire picture. Here is the reversal that almost no analysis of elite life ever reaches. The ultra-rich pay a price that has nothing to do with money, and that money cannot compensate for, and that the lifestyle they have built is specifically designed to conceal, not from the public, but from themselves. The price is the permanent, structural impossibility of knowing who you actually are. Not in a philosophical sense. In a practical, daily, operationally real sense. The person who has been forming and maintaining and projecting a specific version of themselves, calibrated for the rooms they need to enter, the relationships they need to sustain, the communications they need to send and receive, for long enough that the performance and the person have become indistinguishable, has lost access to something that most people take entirely for granted. The unmanaged self, the version of you that exists without an audience, without a signal to maintain, without the ambient awareness of what every choice communicates to the people whose assessment of you has consequences. Most people have this version of themselves in abundance. It is the person they are at home, alone, without performance requirements. It is not always the most admirable version. It is frequently lazy, confused, contradictory, and in possession of preferences and vulnerabilities that the professional version would never permit to surface. But it is real. It is the ground truth of the self from which everything else is calibrated. The ultra-rich, at the highest levels of sustained public exposure and social consequence, gradually lose access to that ground truth. Not all at once, not in any single moment of recognizable transition, through the slow, consistent pressure of an environment that requires the performance to be continuous, that has no genuine off hours, no context that is truly without consequence, no room where the stakes are genuinely low enough that the management can stop. The watch is always on, the address is always signaling, the car is always communicating, the dinner is always, at some level, a professional interaction, regardless of who the other people are and what the occasion is supposed to be. This produces a specific condition that the people inside it rarely name directly, but that surfaces in the specific quality of exhaustion that long-term observers of serious wealth occasionally glimpse in the unguarded moments. Not physical exhaustion, something more fundamental. The exhaustion of someone who cannot remember the last time they were simply present in a moment without calculating what the moment required of them. That cost is real, and it is paid every day by people whose public presentation would suggest that the only cost they know is the one that appears on the statement. Now understand the commercial dimension of this hidden cost, because it has direct consequences for the industries that serve the ultra-rich and for the specific products and experiences that command the highest premiums within those industries. The ultra-rich will pay extraordinary amounts for anything that provides genuine relief from the performance. Not the performance of poverty. They have no interest in slumming, in the pretense of ordinary life, in the specific performance of normality that some wealthy people adopt as a different kind of signal. Relief from the performance itself. The experience of being genuinely, completely, unobservedly off-duty. This is why the most private properties in the world, the islands, the remote lodges, the locations that are genuinely difficult to reach and genuinely impossible to observe from any public vantage point, command premiums that bear no relationship to their material amenity. The premium is for the privacy, not the privacy from public attention, that can be achieved in many ways and at many price points. The privacy from consequence. The genuine, verified, structurally guaranteed privacy that allows the performance to stop. The experiences that provide this are the most valuable things in the ultra-rich lifestyle, and they are, almost without exception, the ones that are never photographed, never mentioned, and never included in any public presentation of how these people live. Because the moment the private refuge becomes visible, it stops being a refuge. It becomes another element of the signal, another component of the infrastructure. And the one thing it was valuable for, The relief from the infrastructure disappears the moment the infrastructure reaches it. This is the deepest structural irony of life at the top of the wealth hierarchy. The more successfully you build the system, the more completely the system consumes you. The architecture protects everything it was built to protect, including you from the life you are trying to build toward. There is a moment that arrives for almost everyone who reaches a certain altitude of wealth and has been there long enough to develop perspective, when the question changes. It is not a dramatic moment. It does not arrive with the clarity of a crisis or the unmistakability of a revelation. It arrives quietly, in the middle of something ordinary, a dinner that costs more than most people earn in a month, a flight over a landscape of extraordinary beauty, a room full of the most powerful people in any industry in the world, as a thought that the person having it does not entirely welcome. Is this it? Not in the nihilistic sense. Not the despair of someone who has found that success is empty. Something more specific and more honest than that. The genuine, sober question of whether the life being lived, the infrastructure maintained, the signals managed, the relationships cultivated, the positions defended, is producing the thing it was supposed to produce. The thing that was the point of all of it. Most people outside the system assume the answer is obviously yes. That the private jet and the yacht and the club and the address and the art and the specific calibration of every visible element of a life constructed at altitude is producing satisfaction commensurate with its cost. That the people inside the system are enjoying, in proportion to what they have built, a quality of life that justifies every sacrifice the building required. The honest answer, from the people inside it who are willing to be honest, is considerably more complicated. What the system produces reliably is not satisfaction. It produces certainty. The specific, rare, genuinely valuable certainty of someone who knows, at all times, where they stand, what they have, what they can do, what options are available to them that are not available to other people. That certainty is real, and it is worth something, more than most people who have never had it fully appreciate, because the absence of it is its own form of chronic anxiety that is easy to underestimate when you have never known anything else. But certainty is not the same as fulfillment. And the system, for all its sophistication and all its power, does not produce fulfillment automatically. Fulfillment is not a function of position, it is a function of meaning. And meaning, at the level we are discussing, has to be constructed deliberately, has to be sought out and built and protected with the same intentionality that the system applies to everything else, or it simply does not arrive. The ultra-rich who understand this are, in a specific and important way, the most strategically sophisticated people in the world. Not because they have built the most impressive systems or accumulated the most impressive positions, because they have understood something about the relationship between wealth and well-being that most of the people around them have not. The system is a means, not an end. It was always a means, and treating it as an end, which the logic of the system and the social culture of the world it creates continuously encourages, is the one error that the entire architecture cannot protect against. Because the architecture was built to protect assets, not to generate meaning. Those are different projects, they require different decisions, and the person who confuses them, who allows the maintenance of the infrastructure to substitute for the construction of a life that is genuinely worth living inside, has made the most expensive mistake available at their altitude. For everyone outside the system, watching it operate from a distance that feels safe but that is always closer than it appears, the true cost of the ultra-rich lifestyle is not a cautionary tale about excess. It is a mirror. Because every element of the system, the signals, the credentials, the performance, the architecture of belonging, operates on the desire of people who are not inside it, on the specific, engineered, continuously reinforced aspiration to reach a level that is defined, maintained, and managed by the people already there. The cost of the ultra-rich lifestyle is not primarily paid by the ultra-rich. It is paid by the people who spend their lives trying to get inside, in time, in money, in the specific, irreplaceable years of a life directed toward a destination that was designed to recede as you approach it, designed to generate the pursuit rather than to reward the arrival, designed, at every level of its construction, to produce aspiration, not satisfaction, because aspiration is renewable and satisfaction is not. And a system that runs on human desire needs its fuel to be inexhaustible. The true cost of living like the ultra-rich is not $40 million for an airplane. It is the life you trade for the pursuit of the airplane. And unlike the airplane, that cost cannot be depreciated, refinanced, or recovered. It is simply spent. Luxury power exists for one reason only: to reveal what the elite pay to hide. Subscribe to Luxury Power and hit the bell now. Every week a new secret is uncovered. Drop in the comments where you're watching from. We love knowing our global audience. Everything you saw here is based on real cases, verified contracts, and documented facts. We don't glorify wealth, we dissect it. Do you still think money buys freedom? Tell us in the comments. Share this with someone who needs to see the truth. And remember, even the most expensive life can be a gilded cage. See you in the next video.